That's, I guess, rookie mistake, but we gotta go.
That's okay.
You can just do a quick, like, recap of what you just did.
Okay. Yeah, too quick. All right. So I guess just for the live stream purpose here, my name is Adam McCarville, and I grew up in Clifton Park, New York. As a program coordinator at Long Island High Technology Incubator, I focused on renewable energy hard tech startup incubation, meaning that we focused on helping startup technologies grow and succeed from early stage till growth stage. And it was an NYSERDA funded program. And I was also had some Suffolk County intern experience, which helped with helping build a patch on with climate smart communities and clean energy goals. I also worked as a marketing intern for the Advanced Energy Center at Stony Brook University, which focuses on building partnerships with NYSTAR and startups in order to build out pilots. So thank you. And on to the next segment, which is so the first thing I'd like to do is actually kind of do an around the room introduction section just to see here. So in person with us, I'll give the floor to Barry.
Okay, thank you, Adam. I'm Barry Carr. I'm the Director of Clean Communities of Central New York. We are based in the Syracuse Center of Excellence. So we do what Adam does in an 11 county area in Central New York. And I've been doing this since 1996. Our coalition, one of 6 in New York State, is turning 30 next year.
Thank you, Barry.
Well,
Other gentlemen.
Okay, I'm David Borton. I'm Solar Sal Boats. We make 100% solar powered boats. They're carbon free, and we use engineering physics to make them practical boats. And it was through this group that DOE's program of Motor Week did a segment on our boats.
Nice.
That was very nice.
Very nice, very nice. And so in on Zoom here, I'm just taking a look. I'm going to read out the names for these. So it looks like we have John Drya from who will be presenting from Global Partners. You'll hear from him later. We have Erin Russell Story, who is our regional manager. She will be also be presenting out on the broader goals of the Department of Energy shortly. J.W. Hackett from Global Partners as well. Really is a full driving force for this presentation as well. Ethan Warren from MTA. CDTA rather. I thought CDTA. We have Roger. Roger from DC.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Roger Tajbash. I'm with the Department of Environmental Conservation and just joining to listen to the group. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you. We have Mark Semple. Mark, if you could just know which organization you're representing in the chat, that's greatly appreciated. We have, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'm also representing Global Partners. I'm the community liaison here in Albany, New York.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We have Jason Jones from New Albany. Parker Morris who's helping me on the side of Transportation Council. We also have Frank Jung. Frank, if you could know your organization, that'd be greatly appreciated. Just in the chat, please. We have Joy Gardner. Joy, I'm happy to move the floor open for a brief introduction if you'd like.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joy Gardner. I'm the Executive Director of Empire Clean Cities, and we're the Clean Cities and Communities Coalition for New York City and the Lower Hudson Valley, which for us is Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland counties.
Thank you, Joy. Great to have you here. And we have Josh Dranoff from CDRPC, which is right next door organization. Josh, if you'd like a second, that's fine as well.
Yes, hello everyone. Josh Dranoff. I am a sustainability planner at the Capital District Regional Planning Commission. We work on the NYSERDA Clean Energy Community Program, as well as the Climate Smart Communities Program through DEC as their outreach coordinators for the 8-county region. good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And also just joining us is John Schneiderwin from Port of Albany. And I actually knew John from my time at Suffolk County. He's a very good guy, and I'm happy he's on the call. Let's see here. We're going to move on to our next segment, which is going to be a presentation by Erin Russell Story, our Northeast Regional Manager. She's also a Technology Integration Project Officer for the U.S. Department of Energy at National Energy Technology Laboratory. So with that, I'm going to pass the presentation to Erin.
Okay, great, thanks. So you're going to run the slides for me then, I guess, Adam, right?
Yes.
Okay. I forgot to ask you that the other day. I apologize.
Not to worry. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. Like Adam said, I'm Erin Russell Story. I am with the Department of Energy at the National Energy Technology Laboratory in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I do wear two hats. I'm a project officer on technology integration awards and projects, and I'm the Northeast Regional Manager for the Clean Cities and Communities Coalitions in New York and New England. So let's see, next slide, please. And I do know a few of you, so it's very nice to be here virtually. Hopefully one of these days I'll be able to make your meeting, Adam, in person. I just wanted to, since it's been a while since I've had a chance to meet with folks and talk with folks, and I know that there's been some transitions in the coalition, I thought it might be a good idea to just do some level setting about clean cities and communities and some of the changes that we've made recently. And so just to back up several steps, just want to remind everybody that Clean Cities and Communities is housed within the Vehicle Technologies Office at the Department of Energy. And VTO, we call it VTO for short, focuses on everything from applied research to demonstration to deployment of vehicles, and everything that we do is focused 100% on clean transportation. Next slide. So we, of course, we know that transportation is a big contributor to pollution. It's a big use of our energy resources. So at VTO, we try to work on all of these different areas, all the way from batteries to net zero carbon fuels, and then moving, I guess, up the chain of from research to deployment. Then we've got technology integration, and we also do a lot of analysis. We really focus on primarily on road, but we do work on off-road things as well, including marine, rail, and air applications of all these things that you can see there in the light green boxes. And then just to make sure everybody's clear, Clean Cities and Communities is housed with the partnership is within the Technology Integration Program at VTO. Next slide, please. These are all of the portfolio of technologies that we focus on in TI and technology integration, and that also includes Clean Cities and Communities. So you can see it's a pretty broad portfolio, all the way from alternative fuel vehicles to idle reduction technology, and then I also mentioned the off-road, rail, and marine and aviation sectors as well. Next slide. All right, so we really focus on trying to provide a lot of resources to our stakeholders and to our Clean Cities coalitions and the directors and the staff that work those coalitions through VTO and TI and everything else that we do. We do try to provide, I'll go over some of this in a couple subsequent slides, but you'll see that we try to do projects that empower communities to transition to clean transportation fuels. We have, for the last several years, had a big focus on zero emission vehicles and the associated infrastructure. And we also try to address issues about the workforce around all of these transportation technologies, making sure that we've got trained technicians and code officials, other authorities that have jurisdiction in local and national settings. So we do a lot of technical assistance and outreach in that area as well. Next slide, please. I'm going to take a moment and remind everybody that if you've not visited the VTL website, I would invite you to do so. Not during the meeting, please. Wait till we're done. But this is a direct link to some webinars that we recorded that are relevant to competitive funding opportunity announcements. Now, I will make one caveat about that. We've traditionally called our competitive funding a FOA, funding opportunity announcement, but we've recently, actually just October 1, have changed our terminology and we're calling them NOFOs, Notice of Funding Opportunities, which is the standard language that the EPA and the USDOT uses. So now most of the federal agencies that you'll deal with on transportation, we all call our competitive funding NOFOs. So hopefully that's a help. But if you take a moment and follow this link, and I can put it in the chat when I'm done talking, there's a series of recorded webinars that we put up there about a year ago that if you're interested in applying for a competitive project through one of our NOFOs, these are a great resource. One webinar gives you just kind of a broad overview of best practices of how to prepare a good application. Another webinar is specifically focused on how to prepare a budget and the budget documentation, because that can actually be quite a big challenge for folks. So I do want to encourage everybody to look at these, especially if you're interested in applying for competitive funding through VTO. Next slide, please. All right. So we recently made some changes in the Clean Cities partnership. For starters, we updated our vision and mission this past May. We also, as you'll notice, we changed our name from Clean Cities to Clean Cities and Communities. We also released our partnership principles. And these principles communicate the culture of how we want Clean Cities and Communities, or CC&C for short, to achieve our mission. Next slide, please. And I can send these slides out if anybody's really interested in reading some of that finer print that you don't have time to, as we go through these slides fairly quickly. We also developed a framework for success. And next slide, please. I'll just go right to the next one. The framework can help us serve as it helps us serve as a guide for how our coalitions work and operate, and also how DOE can program some of our funding to support the coalitions as well as the alternative fuels market as a whole. So we, go back to that one. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. So we in addition to the competitive funding, you'll see that's kind of lumped together in the financial assistance circle in the lower left. We support the Clean Cities and Communities coalitions by providing a lot of information and tools. Those are available on the website, as well as the Alternative Fuels Data Center website, AFDC. We do provide technical assistance. There's the technical response service. Adam has access to that. Actually, Adam, Barry, Joy, all the directors have access to that. So if you have any really challenging questions about fuels, technologies, infrastructure, and you can't seem to find the answer, and maybe you've stumped Adam or you've stumped Barry, the TRS can find the answer for you. I promise I have not stumped them yet in 15 years. We offer our coalitions a lot of training and opportunities for peer sharing and outreach. then the financial assistance, we have the competitive that I talked about, but we also offer direct funding to the coalitions. Next slide, please. So some of the ways that we invest in the coalitions, I mentioned the AFDC website, that's available to the whole wide world. There's information about all the alternative fuels and fueling infrastructure and case studies, and there are wonderful calculators and tools that you can use on that website. I mentioned the technical response service. We also have Tiger teams available if any projects get into kind of tricky situations with difficult issues. We will offer a cooperative agreement this year and again next year, and then we offer our coalitions a lot of training. Next slide. We tend to lump our funding and activities into these 8 boxes. I know 8 probably sounds like a lot, but we really put a lot of thought into putting what we do into these different bins. And so this is where we are focusing our work for now and for the foreseeable future. And you'll see it's not fuel specific. We're not tied to any single alternative fuel technology, but we do tend to focus on fleets. And because of that, we do have maybe a bit of a skew toward medium and heavy duty vehicles, but certainly not always. Next slide, please. So this is really of particular interest to Adam and Barry and Joy, folks on coalition staff. We just released the invitation for the 2025 Coalition Cooperative Agreement. Years and years ago, we did a contract, a kind of a subcontract situation that wasn't met with a lot of satisfaction from the coalition. So we went with cooperative agreements that are directly between DOE and the coalitions, and those will start up there for 24. Those are still in effect, and then 25 will start on April 1. Next slide, please. And we were able to increase the funding for the 25 cooperative agreement, just a tiny amount, not very much. It's $115,000 for a very specific and limited scope of work for each coalition to do. But beyond the work that's in the cooperative agreement, which the cooperative agreement tends to really be focused on market development activities, but also a lot of data collection and reporting and peer sharing. In addition to that, I've mentioned the competitive funding a couple times. We've recently, in our last 2 FOAs, actually it might be 3, and yes, I did call them FOAs because they're already done and out the door and complete, or the projects are going, you know, are in process. We actually required in a couple of our topic areas that coalitions be involved in the projects and actually have a funded role. And that's made a big difference to our coalitions. It's gotten them some more funding. But it's also helped to develop some really creative partnerships between the coalitions and their stakeholders. So we have 54 projects that have coalitions in a paid role on our current competitive awards that are ongoing right now, to the tune of $120 million of federal funding going directly to the coalitions. And then 51 coalitions have very specific paid roles in those projects, and that's out of about 75 total coalitions. We are growing the program a little bit, so I'm not sure if we're at 75 or if we're at 77 coalitions right now. And some of our coalitions are also leads, are prime recipients of those projects, and that's a fairly heavy lift for these coalitions, depending upon the size of their organization. Next slide, please. I mentioned the 2025 Coalition Cooperative Agreement. We just sent out the invitations last week. So those will start again, not start again, but there'll be a new funding year basically that starts April 1. I don't want to get too complicated language, but so it's really kind of more or less the same scope as 2024. So there aren't really any surprises about the work that needs to get done to fulfill the obligation for that cooperative agreement. Next slide, please. Oh, we could probably skip over this since we've already released that. Adam and Barry and Joy have all seen the SOPO, the Statement of Project Objectives for 2025. I do want to take a moment and say that task 2 of the SOPO, which the stakeholders really probably don't need to see unless you really, really want to, but you do interact with it, whether you realize it or not, because we, like I said, require a lot of data collection and reporting from our coalitions. And I want to take a quick second and thank you. Thank all the stakeholders for participating in that data collection and reporting activity. So every year when the coalition, whether it was Jacob and now it'll be Adam, asked you to report your fleet numbers or your fuel use numbers or any new fueling infrastructure that you opened or frankly closed during the year, that data helps us because then Adam turns that around into an online reporting tool. And then we use that, the DOE use that to tell our story about how successful our coalitions are and how successful the partnership is overall. And we can't collect that data and tell that story without the assistance of the stakeholders. So thank you very much for doing that. And I hope that you'll continue to do that. Next slide, please. All right, and again, another sales pitch. We do have a newsletter. There's VTO Go newsletter, and then there's a Transportation Fact of the Week, and you can sign up for both of those through the VTO website. So when you're at the VTO website looking for those webinars about how to apply to a funding opportunity, you can go ahead and sign up for these newsletters. And you won't regret it because we actually, in addition to making announcements about funding opportunities through traditional channels like grants.gov, we also release that funding opportunity information through the newsletter as well. So it's definitely a benefit if you sign up for our email alerts from VTO. And I think that that's probably all I have. And the next slide's my contact information.
Yeah, and I want to open up just for a quick section here. If folks have any questions or comments, go either put them in the chat or feel free to speak up as well.
Aaron, do you think that you're going to be shut down tomorrow?
Barry, I have no insight into that whatsoever. I'm as in the dark as you are.
Thanks. I think a key is, the only comment I'll make on it, the key is, and one of the best things about clean cities and communities is the amount of collaboration between all 76 or 77 coalitions, however there are. We all try to support and help one another.
Thank you. Go
I
ahead.
have a specific question. I'm curious about, and maybe some of the other coalition directors can enlighten me of the fueling reporting and how detailed you actually get in your regions.
So Sandy, are you talking about there's just to, do you mean what Adam has to report the one time a year in the annual report, or is this the quarterly alternative fuel price report?
The quarterly.
So we do offer a document that we call the FAQ document. So if you don't have that, it is available on the toolbox. And I'm sorry, folks, that's actually a part of the website that's password protected that's only for the coalition directors. So I can't invite everybody to see that. But There is an FAQ document there. And Sandy, if you can't find it there, it should also be on the forum. And if you can't find it, just email me and I will send it to you. And it's got details in there about how many what the minimum expectation and minimum requirement is. Because it's, generally speaking, not as many as people think. We have some coalitions that have a high density of alternative fueling stations in their region, and they tend to go overboard with their reporting. And we just need a reasonable sample to get good data. We don't have to have everything.
Gotcha,
I'm
that's
sure the
helpful.
system could handle a data point from every fueling station that we have. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, no, that's very helpful. We'll take a look at the minimum requirements. Thank you.
yeah, but I
And
do
I
want to
see
say
that-
that information is really important because lots of different entities look at that data. The national pricing averages of specific alternative fuels plus a regional, they'll look at regional averages. I've seen that data quoted by the EIA. I've seen it on CNBC. So it's important. It really is.
Those are great points.
Thank you.
I see that Mark also has a hand raised on Zoom. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, thank you for the information, Aaron. Aaron, my question is more around community engagement and outreach. How can you give me, how deep do you go in the weeds as far as community engagement and more of awareness education,
Sure. Well, we go pretty deep, Mark, but then at the same time, it's important to remember that we're a program that's focused primarily on fleets and not the general public. So we do try to strike a balance there. We have had several FOA topics where we have been directed by the administration and leaders at DOE to do outreach and education with certain community groups, with certain types of community groups that are not fleets, and are not businesses, that are more representative of the general public and individuals. So I don't know if that will change in the future, but it's a difficult balance for our coalitions to strike, because transforming the transportation system of the country is a big job, and focusing just on fleets is a big job. So, and focusing on the general public would be its own big job. So we have asked our coalitions to do a lot in terms of, really they've taken on a whole lot, both reaching out to fleets as well as to a degree to the general public. So I assume that we'll continue to try to work with our coalitions to keep striking that balance. But I think that we're probably always going to be a partnership that focuses primarily on fleets and businesses and municipalities and things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think not more like elected officials, community leaders, they need to know,
Yes.
what they don't know. But the general public, the role of these community leaders and elected officials is to inform, because there's a lot of misinformation out there too. So that's where more or less where my question is. But thank you for that.
Yeah, we definitely try to encourage our coalitions to all have relationships with those thought leaders and decision makers in their areas, whether they're elected officials or leaders of nonprofit organizations, environmental organizations. It's very important, and I think that Adam and Joy and Barry could attest to that.
Yeah, thank you.
David, if you had another point. go.
Yeah, I have a question because your fact of the week was 95%. And 95% of the world's cargo goes by boats. And so I'm hoping that your vehicles, which you do a lot of, include this 95% of marine transportation. If you have any comments on that, I'd like to hear them. Otherwise, that's just a suggestion.
Well, we have a whole piece of VTO that focuses on off-road rail and marine. And that is basically another pillar within VTO, just like we have batteries and lightweighting. And so we've got the ORMA pillar within VTO, and that's really their focus. And we incorporate those aspects of transportation as much as we can in Clean Cities and Communities, but again, we do have to be mindful how much we're asking our coalitions to actually do and execute, because it's a big task. We've kind of we're asking a lot of them, and most of our coalitions do focus primarily on road transportation, because they're based in areas where on road is still their biggest concern. Not that they exclude marine opportunities if they come up, but generally speaking, those aren't going to be the priority in most coalitions.
Thank you.
Appreciate everyone and your comments and questions. I'm going to keep things moving forward. The next segment that we have coming up, we have special guest speakers from Global Partners. We'll just get there so it's going. Take it away, John, if you're or JW, whichever.
Hey, everybody, really appreciate your time and interest in something that's really personally important to me. I absolutely love this product. I think it's a great fit for what you all are trying to accomplish. A little bit about us, if folks aren't aware, we are a liquid energy company headquartered in Waltham, Massachusetts, and we've got roughly 54 terminal complexes stretching from South Coast Maine around the Florida Straits and over to Texas and the Pacific Northwest, as well as the Dakotas, along with a large network of convenience stores. We touch just about every molecule under the sun, and we've had a long-standing and significant presence, notably in Albany and Newburgh, in your neck of the woods. Happy to entertain questions or comments throughout the presentation, or if you'd like, ask them at the end or follow up with us afterward. We're happy to connect anytime. Next slide, please. So just kind of stepping back a little bit about renewable diesel, or RD as it's commonly known. In a nutshell, it is a drop-in replacement fuel for diesel. It's what I like to call a renewable hydrocarbon. Meets the same ASTM spec as ultra-low sulfur diesel that you can find at pumps or elsewhere, and it has cold flow that performs much more like diesel fuel than biodiesel, which makes it a great fit for the snowy Northeast. The production process, to give you a flavor of how this stuff works, it's basically the same technology that petroleum refining employs, hydrotreating. You got some other emerging technologies like power to X and pyrolysis, gasification that could gain market share if they're able to scale up and come down the cost curve. But today, this is a great opportunity to convert existing refineries to renewable production processes. And the big difference between the two of them is that you're swapping out crude oil for fats, oils, and other waste greases. Next slide. So, why should people use this stuff? A couple of reasons. One, the emissions reductions are very significant. EPA and other regulatory agencies such as California's Air Resources Board, that whole West Coast Clean Fuel Corridor, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, Canada, European Union, pick your pick your country, they've been looking at this stuff for a very long time, and the life cycle analysis on these products is roughly a 50 to 78% drop compared to baseline petroleum diesel. Right now, I think it's roughly on average about a 65% reduction, which depends on the feedstock and the production process. But that's kind of what you can expect today. There are some opportunities to continue proving that with things like green hydrogen and additional incorporation of renewable electricity in production processes. But it's a pretty good immediate drop if you put this into your systems. There are also some benefits for mitigating criteria pollutants, especially for older equipment. Particulate matter can drop substantially, roughly up to 30%, and there are some minor reductions in NOx, which is a very good thing. The most impressive thing about this is that it doesn't require infrastructure modifications. There may be, in some very limited cases, some equipment that may be operating on Caro. You may need to tweak it, but the changes aren't material from a cost perspective. But everything else, like for a diesel engine that you'd see on the road or like a fleet, this is something that you can just slide in 100% and not see a difference. There are also a few other benefits to it because of the cleaner profile of the molecule. You require fewer diesel particulate filter replacements and a lower risk of deposits and injectors, which helps minimize costly downtime, which fleet managers struggle with sometimes. Next slide. Who's using this today? Who do we get inquiries from? Anybody that's utilizing diesel equipment that's looking to improve their environmental performance. We've worked with academic institutions, lots of heavy duty trucking firms. There's some interest in heating oil purposes. Rhode Island includes renewable diesel in its heating oil mandate in state. There are ferries that utilize this product. Trained Amtrak uses it out west. Lots of construction firms are looking at it to help address sustainability requirements in contracts that they've obtained. There are data centers that utilize this stuff for backup generation, and TVA notably conducted a large-scale renewable diesel trial in its peaking power plant in Johnsonville, Tennessee. I believe the full emissions analysis will be released in a report at some point during the winter. But that's something that folks may want to consider going forward. I know it might be a little bit outside the scope of this organization, but the Northeast is disproportionately reliant on oil peaking power. Next slide. Kind of looking forward, we've come a long way in not too much time. We've got roughly over 2.5 billion gallons of domestic production today. We're largely self-sufficient, but just a lot of interest in converting refineries. Folks that have spare fluid catalytic cracker capacity, FCC. I think I said that right. And some others that are looking at doing some trials. Next slide. Globally, it's become quite a big market, and there's a lot of capex that's been invested into this product. I think you're looking at close to 30 billion gallons a year, or a little after 2030. But that can include other distillates like sustainable aviation fuel, renewable naphtha, which is a blending component for gasoline, and then you've got LPG, renewable LPG coming out of that. But you've got a lot of product that's coming online, and there's been a exponential growth in supply, and it's heavily concentrated in North America, and to a lesser degree, Europe and Asia. Next slide. One case study that I think is a just absolutely great look, and there are other benefits for other types of lower carbon fuels and zero emissions fuels. California's low carbon fuel standard has really sparked the development of this sector domestically. Today, almost 70% of the California market is renewable diesel. It's the largest fuel market out there. Another 7% is biodiesel. They've got 3/4 of their diesel pool being renewable, which is a remarkable feat in a relatively short amount of time for energy markets, which tend to move pretty slowly. And it's cost competitive with diesel out there, which it's just such a great story. And there are other products that it's incented the growth of, from EV charging to renewable natural gas and other products. Next slide. Go ahead.
Hey guys, John Draja, also with Global. I'm going to talk a little bit about the domestic supply landscape. So for renewable diesel, there's some voluntary demand at this time, but widespread supply really relies on a public policy push for clean fuel programs. So in the absence of those CFPs, it's important to have an adequate and rateable amount of demand, basically to de-risk the opportunity. So the higher volume of this product you can bring in, it makes it more cost competitive against some of the other fuel products out there. And with regards to policy uncertainty for next quarter, that's kind of been swirling around in a lot of people's minds over the past couple of weeks. We don't really have an outlook at this time, but with that said, because of the infrastructure in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, we anticipate this product will have long-term success, specifically in our regions. So next slide, please, Adam. So if you're interested in getting started or learning more about renewable diesel for your business or your organization, there's some things that are important to consider. So first off would be, where do you operate? Specifically for this organization, we have renewable diesel supply in Albany and Newburgh. So if your business or organization is located in or around those terminals, that's an easy service option. But if you're not, don't worry. We formulate solutions for people outside of our terminaling network all the time. So that's just one piece to keep in mind. As far as how you get the fuel or how you fuel for your organization, that's probably the second most important thing to consider. At this point, renewable diesel isn't as available in a retail setting. There's some availability, but it's few and far between at this point, at least on the East Coast. So if you have your own fueling infrastructure on site, that really makes fuel switching a lot easier because you're just changing what's in your tank essentially. And then the next thing would be essentially what's your usage, how many gallons, how often, and where does it need to go? These are all important considerations when drumming up a proposal or a cost estimate. And then lastly would be, how are you going to use the fuel? Is it for an on-road purpose? Is it for an off-road purpose? And this affects the tax implications of purchasing the fuel. So, next slide, please, Adam. And last, if you're interested in getting started, we have all sorts of different opportunities to trial this fuel and set up a test period. If you want to try it in your machines or utilize it for your business, feel free to reach out to me. On the left side of the screen is a QR code that'll take you right to my contact information. On the right side of the screen, that QR code will take you to our LinkedIn page. So I invite you to follow us at Sustainability at Global on LinkedIn for all updates from our environmental products group. So thank you.
Thank you so much, JW and John, for your time. Now I'm just going to open the floor quick to some Q&A here. Anyone have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Barry, start.
I always have a question. If I had, I'm in Syracuse, if I had a trucking firm that was going to take 50,000 gallons a year or something, or for a specific project because the project had sustainability goals for the people working on it, and these would be going into trucks.
Mhm.
Without a low carbon fuel standard, which we don't have yet here, what would the cost difference be? Would it be 20%? Would it be 40%? But, and just an estimate of that would be good.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to give you an exact price differential, I guess, at this point without, having all the factors in front of me. And with the supply and tax landscape changing in the coming year, we anticipate prices to increase slightly, but where it's going to land, I don't really have a good indication at this time. That's kind of the best information I can give you. But if you're interested in learning more, please reach out. I'm happy to meet with you and the organization you're talking about, and we can throw some numbers together and put together an actual proposal if there is interest, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else on the Zoom and or David, any?
This is very specific. What's the molecular weight of your naphtha?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
All right,
Impressive.
just curious. Never mind. Thank you.
That's okay. We're a technical floor as well, so.
Yeah. We can follow up on that if you're interested. We personally don't handle renewable naphtha, but a lot of our suppliers do. If you'd like to learn more about it, we'd be happy to put you in touch with them. So if you drop your name in the chat, we'll get it to you.
I have a question for you. Occasionally we get public comment that talks about the fuels you're discussing aren't, quote, green enough. What would you say to those folks in terms of your product?
Yeah, that is a question that we've gotten occasionally from a few stakeholders. Look, I feel like progress is better than no progress. These products have been analyzed by numerous regulatory agencies for a very long time. They've been proven to reduce life cycle emissions, and there are also some criteria pollutant benefits associated with that. I think some of this equipment is going to be around for a really long time, and unless folks think that they can have an overnight transformation to zero emissions vehicle technology, we really need to look at a whole suite of options to tackle this enormous challenge. I encourage folks to engage and work with us and others that are in this space to continue addressing their concerns so that we can keep improving upon what we have. There's a lot of great stuff in the pipeline, but we're really bullish on this product. We think it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, really great. I appreciate the discussion points, and feel free to definitely reach out to John and JW as a follow-up if you come up with anything else. Let me continue on the next section, and thank you again, JW and John here. The next section, I'm calling it the Innovation Snapshot, where I plan to cover an innovative technology in each quarterly meeting. This time around, I actually stuck in David's court a little bit here with maritime in the sense of an ammonia power-based technology. So I actually had the personal experience of getting to meet the CEOs and team members of this group in particular. The name of the company is Amogy. This is back when I was at Long Island High Technology Incubator, but figured I'd share it with everyone. So their company started up in 2020 by MIT grads, and they based their company at New Lab, which is in Brooklyn, New York. So I thought it'd be cool to share out a regional, that's awesome that they're based out of New York. And what they did is they developed a, as you see here, the last picture, the tugboat, they developed a tugboat that runs on green ammonia produced by renewable electricity. And the boat has just going through some specs here, it has around a 2,000 gallon tank that fits into an old fuel tank space and runs from their numbers, they boast for about in this boat itself, a 10 to 12 hour day at sea. And what specifically, and I'm gonna make sure I'm keeping terms in less technical, more understandable here. Their technology splits liquid ammonia into the constituents of hydrogen and nitrogen. And then it funnels the hydrogen into a fuel cell that generates electricity in the vessel, and that's without well, they're boasting without carbon emissions, as companies do that. The process of doing this does not actually burn the ammonia, which I found to be quite an interesting counterpoint to have, in that it's not like a combustion engine where you're, so it's primarily producing nitrogen in its elemental form and water as emissions. To that point, one would, well, if you're on the chemistry side, your first point in mind is, does that mean that there's trace NOx? The answer, that is one of the pain points that the company is targeting, is getting rid of trace NOx in its, and so that's a goal that they're working on. Now, I do want to note, so this project made it through all their technology, made it through all of the stages of Lloyd's register, and that is a very high standard technological achievement. So this is a vetted tech that has the potential if markets are created, and that's the biggest if you can possibly have. But you know, I thought it'd be interesting to just show that. They're currently being backed by Amazon's Climate Pledge, SK Innovation, Saudi Aramco Ventures, Mitsubishi Corporation, AP Ventures, and Tamsec. So they do have a lot of industry funding, but you know, their current focus is actually, they might be going more international due to better, well, more, I guess the way to word it is more focused policies that open the doors for incentivizing their fuel solution. That's the best way I'd like to word it. So what's next for them really quickly is just that they are focusing on a partnership with a diesel engine company called HD Hyundai Infracore, and also SK Innovations Co., which they will partner to then combine a 100%, well, combine to result in a 100% hydrogen engine that will then combine with the ammonia cracking technology and act as a catalyst to break down the ammonia into hydrogen at a lower reaction temperature than they're currently doing. What that will allow is, well, for the efficiency standpoint and also the safety standpoint to meet better temperatures. And I just thought that I would share this out and folks can see that the scale up was very, very quick. And it was very interesting that they went from different modes of transportation in their scale up just to prove the tonnage that could be moved by their technology. So hopefully folks find this interesting, and the next time around, I'll have something fresh and different in the mix. I'll open the comments and questions actually, because I thought it'd be an interesting, you know, I'm sure there's plenty. I'll do my best.
All those, the drone, the tractor, the semi, to talk about, are operating electrically through a fuel cell?
Via their liquid ammonia split to hydrogen, nitrogen, and then yes, and as you're saying, yes, and electric at the end, like any that's electric converted. Yeah,
Very cool.
exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, any other questions?
Since you're into the technology,
Sure.
how much capacitor is between the fuel cell and the motor of the boat?
I would definitely not have the answer to that. But that's a really good question. You know, if you do have if you have a list of questions that, if anyone comes up with a list at all, I can do my best to actually reach out. I have a few contacts from their policy and technical team. I'd actually be happy to reach out. So just let me know. I can do that for you. But just see, I think in this essence of time here, I'm going to move on. If there's no further questions, there actually might be something in the chat. Check. Oh, no, it was just an introduction from someone. Okay. I'm going to move on. So just wanted to end, or we'll end my section, I guess, with a food for thought in terms of greenhouse gas emissions by economic sector. I myself am not necessarily the biggest, largest champion of the current process for how we calculate GHG across different sectors. But I think it's still numbers worth looking at and seeing trends based off of what's currently being calculated. This graph itself was from the Department of Energy, so I found it to be the most on a scale of a trustable source that I could get. And I thought I'd just share out that, based off this, we've experienced from 1990 to 2020 an increase of about 18% from in the transportation sector itself. Just noting that our electricity generation category is starting to shrink because we're producing energy more efficiently, but when you then look in the transportation area, it's not necessarily following that same trend. So just some food for thought, and the next time around, I'll have a different graphic and a different analysis in place. And any questions or comments on this slide?
You see where it's significant, that's for sure.
So I'm gonna keep going, and don't be afraid to jump in. Sorry, slide here. So our recent updates with the Capital District Clean Communities. So in September, we attended the Port Industry Day at Port of Albany. As I noted, John Schweineman is on the call from Port of Albany. His organization helped hold this day where there was a lot of conversation on offshore wind and the implications that will have on the region regarding heavy infrastructure transportation. And that's actually something that our freight planning team at Capital Region Transportation Council is focusing on. It's a pain point because you've got heavy materials that are being large scale materials. You have to focus on how that's impacting the transportation infrastructure, and that's everything down to the front of people's homes and the roadways and safety. So it's a really big, a long-term conversation and an important one to have for the Capital District. And next year, we were able to, in October, go on a tour of Sprague Energy Terminal. Specifically, this actually tied directly into our conversation around renewable diesel. This was actually the first time I was able to see a terminal that housed renewable diesel. Saw that it was very interesting. You don't have to worry about the same temperature challenges that you might have to for biodiesel. So like JW and John were saying, it's a very seamless process of storing it, and I was very fascinated by that. I think it's an interesting concept in the sense that it can be used as a drop-in fuel, and like they both noted, improvement is better than no improvement, and I think that that's a pretty interesting thought process to go about when you're talking about energy variety and how to make actionable change. And then the next here, Barry knows a lot about this as well because he was here with me, but we had a bus scrappage recently happen at Port of Albany at, what was the name of it? It was Weitzman, yeah, at the Weitzman landfill.
Yeah, Weitzman Recycling.
Recycling, okay. And yeah, so our process for this is as clean cities and communities directors, we attend bus scrappage audits for NYSERDA. It's part of their incentive program that provides a bonus for stakeholders that engage in swapping out their, well, I say dirty fuel, or rather fossil fuel buses for cleaner solutions. So this is just part of their incentive process, and like it or not, it's just something that goes on. Sometimes there might be some components of it that aren't necessarily as friendly to the environment, but incentive is incentive. So, I think it's somewhere around 65,000 that goes towards each bus that you scrap. So I think that's that's where the incentive point through this in performing these scratches. Let me see here. Yeah. So next, moving on, we have some upcoming event planning that we have in the works. I will note that this opportunity itself may perhaps be contingent on a on a SUNY grant that our partner organization is pursuing. So Hudson Valley would be partnering us for this event, where we'd like to hold a technical assistance program for at their automotive tech lab for electric vehicles. And, you know, I kind of just had this posted out to let everyone on the call know about this. And I'd like to pinpoint, you know, if you have stakeholders or fleet owners that would possibly be interested in this, I'd like to pinpoint exactly when, you know, that would work for you. And I'm happy to, you know, set that up and make it work for our coalition. We're deep in the process of setting that. I have it aimed for June 17th of next year. Again, I'll have all the cost details once grant components are figured out. And we just, I think the last slide is coming up here. So in terms of action items, so I just like to go over just, you know, if anyone on this call or in person here has any thoughts on conversation points or topics for our next meeting, I'm happy to consider them. And I think it's just important to have a good mix of industry, policy, and technological challenges or opportunities as a topic, because that allows for a broad discussion on alternative fuels. And we can get specific as well, like today we covered renewable diesel, but I think, you know, having that broad scale conversation and seeing where challenges and opportunities are is an important part for our board. And then there's also another component is considering those workshops or gaps in education or training. I think that's a powerful component that the coalition can have in helping to facilitate those as, you know, industry itself might be interested, but it also can be directed towards municipalities that are interested in learning about up and coming tech. So don't hesitate at all to reach out to my email. I provided that below. And as far as other components, so that ends out the presentation components, but I would actually like to open up the floor now to any related updates around the table or the Zoom. If you have any interesting energy related projects or even you know, if you can gauge it to transportation related, I'm happy to open the floor to comments or questions or share outs. So go ahead.
We have two new boats under construction. One is a pleasure boat. That's a 34-foot boat on the west coast, and the other is a 30-foot commercial boat for 20 passengers. There's interest in commercial harbors in the Northeast.
And that was for solar power boats, correct?
That's all I do.
Okay. No, yeah, I just wanted.
Where do you build those?
Well, there's some on the west coast. On the east coast, it depends on the boat and circumstances. So the prototype of the 30-foot boat is actually in my boat building barn.
Okay. I think I saw one not just a couple of months ago, but a year before at a Drive Electric event in
Yes.
Schenectady, maybe?
Yes.
Okay, that's nice.
Well, I'd like to talk to you about boats on the Erie Canal.
Yeah, that's a good application.
Yeah, well, not now.
Yeah,
But that's totally fine, but I mean, you know, that's actually one of the best parts of this is it gives us a chance to, you know, break into those conversations, so it's good stuff. Anyone else on the Zoom have any projects or initiatives to share? Take that as a note for time, but that's okay. Anything else, you know, feel free to reach out to me directly. I think it's always great to know what's going on in the region and reflect on that in our next projects and initiatives. So with that.
I know you have another scrappage coming up, but I haven't heard any dates yet, but the one you showed a picture of was Niskayuna Schools, right?
Yes.
The town of Bethlehem, that's here, right? They're getting some Thomasville buses, I think. from Matthews Bus Service. They called me the other day and sent me a bunch of stuff, but they haven't. I don't think the buses have been built yet, the electric ones, but they're gonna be scrapping them here, and I don't know if it's at Weitzman or where it'll be, but I'll let you know as soon as I know.
And that process, just so you know, is it is a lot of paperwork, but.
It's a lot of paperwork.
But it's worthwhile in the sense that we help out with the incentives for transferring over to clean tech, so that's nice. Yeah, I think, I think that about wraps it up for today's meeting. I really appreciate everyone for their time coming on. John, JW, Aaron, really appreciate this discussion that you both facilitated. And always happy to have you as guests on the calls moving forward if you have that time in your calendars as well. Thank you, everyone, and have a swell rest of your Thursday.
Thanks,
And
Adam.
happy holidays.
Likewise. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Holidays. Happy New Year.